Hi and welcome. So in this video, we're going to install ESP IDF into Visual Studio Code. And also going to install Visual Studio Code. Initially, I was going to have two installations in this. One would do that, and the next one would go over how to install MQTT broker stroke servers onto a PC as part of the project. And I do reference that later on. So I was going to film the bit separately over a couple of days. However, I've decided to do the MQTT broker as a different video because you may already have this expressive ESP IDF already set up in Visual Studio Code. So in that point, you'd only be trying to find through a video which is looking for the MQTT part. So I'm going to break it up into two different ones, and the next one will be MQTT. So in this video, we'll go over the installation. Older documentation talks about having to install ESP IDF separately. That's no longer true. If you use the extension that's in VS Code, it'll actually pull down and install ESP IDF for you. You may already have ESP IDF installed. If you've been using Arduino, there's a good chance because Arduino uses some of the core features of the IDF. So you may already have it installed. If that is the case, then you don't need to reinstall it. You'll be able to, as you'll see in the installation video, you'll be able to just point it to your existing one. Either way, it's really straightforward. Install VS Code if you haven't already. Install the ESP IDF, and it does take a while. It'll go through as you configure it, installing other peripherals, devices, and applications needed, such as Python and that, and it'll check all that. At the end of that, you should have a working VS Code environment. I will put in the comments or in the more, I'll put in some sample little couple of lines of code that I use at the end just to test the install is working fine. So hopefully you find this useful, and talk to you soon. And let me know if you have any issues with the installation, and I'll get back to you via the comments. Okay, talk to you soon. So this is the VS Code installation part, and again, the link for VS Code installer is going to be in down below in the more information. Okay, so the first step we must do is we must download for Windows in this my case, but you can download it for other systems. So that's going to download there, and this I'm actually remoted onto a machine that doesn't have VS Code because my workstation here does have VS Code in it. So, and I want to do a full clean install as if it wasn't. I need the code wasn't on it or that. So we're actually downloading to a machine I've remoted onto. So we're just going to pause there, and we're going to come back when the download has finished. Okay, so we're finished the download there, and we're just going to go ahead now and start the install process. So as usual, there are agreements, so accept. Now, if you want to change it, it's up to you. The machine I'm remoting onto doesn't have an additional drive. Normally, I would use a second drive for my repos and stuff like that, just so I can find it again. So in this case here, I'm just going to accept the default ones for it and what we want to call it. And yeah, create a desktop icon. And it's going to go ahead and start doing the install. Depending on what is on this computer or your computer, you may be prompted to install some C++ tools and some other stuff. So we're just going to leave that go through, and when it finishes, I'll come back. Okay, so that didn't take long, and it wants to launch. Yeah, we will launch it just to make sure everything is fine with that. And it's going to be, this is its first launch, so it could take a little bit longer than what it would normally launch. It does, once it's installed, it launches fairly quickly. Whilst we're going to be going through how to install the ESP IDF libraries on this, you can still use this with Arduino. You can, and I'll show you how to plug in, install the extensions on that for the Arduino. So what gives Visual Studio Code so much power, and what's making it the go-to IDE for most people is the extensions. And the extensions in the marketplace allow you plug in different features, and it's an Arduino extension and that you can also plug in. So we're going to that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to install the ESP IDF extension. So to get the extensions up, um, you just there's several ways of doing it, but probably the easiest way to do it, sorry, I'm just juggling different monitors, is this blocks here. So this is the extension installer here, and we click on that, and if you type in here, you know, it's fairly loose because it's going to do a search, but expressive, I always get spelled out, is it two S's? And there we go. So expressive IDF comes up here. So this is the development framework that we want to use. So click on that, and it'll say, it'll give you the choice to hit install, and that's going to start installing the extension. Now it's quite big, so we'll leave that do its thing. As you can see, it's installing, and we'll come back once it's finished. Okay, so that has installed the extension. What we need to do next is we need to do a little bit of configuration inside of here. There's a thing in Visual Studio called the command palette, and you access the command palette quite simply from going up here, View and Command Palette, and up comes this, and it's very powerful. And it's not just for ESP IDF; it lets you get to any of the settings in Visual Studio. You can, that's how one way of doing it. The other way, the way I usually normally do it, is just press F1 and it brings up the command palette there. Now what we're looking for in this is we need to configure the ESP IDF settings. So and actually it's come up here, it says recently used because I did a list, but let's say, so you just type it ESP IDF, and you can see it's not case sensitive, and the one we're looking for is configure configure ESP IDF extension. So as we type, it'll refine that. And there we go. We see there's the configure ESP IDF one. So we're going to click on that. And this, again, the first time it's run, it's going to start looking for ESP IDF on this machine, and we don't have it installed in this one. So this is going to come back, and it's going to come back with this. Now, if it had found, and there's a good reason why it might have found ESP IDF. For example, you might have, if you have been using the ESP32 with Arduino, you have probably, whether you realize it or not, downloaded the ESP IDF. Because whilst people might be giving out about ESP IDF and that, that's all Arduino uses, and we can actually see that a little bit later, or depending on the way I've edited this, you might have seen it already. So the ESP IDF, you're going to be using either directly, the way we will be with this application, or indirectly through Arduino. So I've only two options. If, as I said, you've already installed ESP IDF, you may have one on the bottom which will say use an existing installation, and there's fine. Why not use the existing installation? You're only going to reinstall it again. And you can see the Express one is the one I'm going to use, and it's going to install Expressive to the C drive. You can change that again. So you just click on it, and it's going to ask us some little questions here. I'm just going to read these, and we will have a look. Yeah, so I just wanted to have a quick look there at that. So yeah, you can see it's going to default to find the ESP IDF in your system, and we're not. We're going to take this latest release version. And this is where it's going to install it to. Again, you can change that. But for this one, we're just going to go with the default ones. So containers, this is important, container library and that. So just remember where you are installing stuff to. So this is fill ESP and it's ESP IDF, and here is where Expressive itself it's going to. So we just hit the install and we'll leave that to its stuff. This, as I said, hasn't downloaded and it's quite big, so it is going to take a while. It's just going to go through that. If anything pops up, literally windows pop up, I'll pause and come back to you. Otherwise, we're just going to go with this install. I'm going to have a cup of coffee. Just a quick flick back there, nothing's gone wrong, don't need to intervene or anything, but you can see it's after installing the prerequisites, and it's now installing ESP IDF itself. And then it's going to go to tools, and then it's going to check for Python, and if Python isn't installed, it's going to go through there. Of course, if you don't have Python or that installed, then it'll probably prompt you for, you know, like paths and stuff like that. So yeah, we're just going to leave that go and do its business, and we'll be right back. Okay, so that eventually finished installing. It took a long time because everything needed to be downloaded for this computer. But we got this successful, has been installed. So what we'll do now is we're going to have a look at these icons. So I'm just going to make this bigger. And the next stage is to have a look at these icons, what they do, and build a test application so that we know everything is working properly. So we're going to do that now. Just going to change our screens and we'll be right back. So now that we've installed the ESP IDF extension, we need to test it out. I've flicked back to my main machine because the one I was remoting onto for the install is a different location, so I can't actually plug in an ESP32 device to it. So I've gone back to this one. Now there's one other extension which you will be prompted to install. If you're not prompted, you should install it anyway. And it's the C/C++ extension pack. To install it, if you're not prompted, and you might as well get ahead of the curve, you just click these boxes here. This is the extension installer, and you start to type C-C++ extension. You can see it's coming up. Oop, spelled that wrong. Oops. Extension. Okay, so, and this is a here extension, and you click on that, and you hit install. I have it already installed, so it's not going to come up anyway, or it's going to be that. Okay, so you will be prompted, as far as I know, for that. So what we want to do is we want to build an application of this so that we can test it. Now there is a little thing we can do here. So what we need to do is we need to go up to the command palette. So the command palette is up here. So that's view, command palette. And if it doesn't already pop up, and it may not pop up if you haven't used it before, you need to type ESP. Again, you don't have to worry about case IDF colons new project. And this starts a wizard and it sets up everything for you. And it's very handy to use. So I'm just going to start that there now, and it's going to come up with a new project information. Now, the new project, well, we're going to give it a project name, give it a project location. We're going to tell it what board we want to use, and we're going to tell what COM port we're connected to it. These can all be changed afterwards. ESP IDF component directory is normally a handy thing. That's if you're using additional, what they call components, and they're like libraries for specific things. We're not going to use it for this very just hello world project, but it is something that we would want to use in future. So, but for now, we're not going to use it. Okay, so let's just change the project name. We'll just call this hello world. And I'm going to go with the default location for this. Normally, as I said, I put it on my D drive, but just for this is just a simple test. We're going to get rid of it later, and I'm going to dump this. So it's suggesting that the rover kit, but no, I'm not going to go with that. So you can see this isn't going to be. You're not going to be selecting kits as such. You're going to be selecting the actual processor on the board, and you can change every single parameter for it. This is why this can be very handy. So we're going for the ESP32S3 chip and via ESP programmer. So that's just going to be, we're going to be using the USB tool. It's going to prompt for a COM port. I happen to know mine is on COM port 7. As for now, for this test, we're going to leave this component directory blank, and we're going to go choose template. Now, when we go to choose template, you may have a different, you may have that up. This is showing a load of examples that's coming with. Get started, and there's a load of different, you can see there's LCD, or there are LCD ones here and everything else. But what we're going to do is we're not going to use these pre-built demos or examples that comes with ESP IDF. We're going to use, we select extension. Now, there are different Arduino as component, Fibonacci app, template app is the one we're going to go. And that's going to create a bare bones ESP IDF application for us. There's a little thing here that's telling us where the paths and the structure of it. We can ignore that, and we can go create project using template. So it's going to build it, and it's going to prompt, do you want to open in a new window? If we'd installed the components, it would now be pulling over the components, and it'll take an awful lot longer to actually build it. But this is a fairly empty project. So yes, we go yes. So it's going to just create a new window, new visual code. So I'm going to close down the old one that's in the background, and here's my other one. And saying, do you trust the authors? Yes, well, it's going to be you who's writing it, and I assume you can trust yourself. So yes, I trust them. Okay, so now we get this screen here, and we will see up here on our left in our files, if you can't see them, if it's been minute closed down, you just click on it. So there is a show the files, this is a search, this is about Git, debug, this is our extensions. And here's the ESP IDF Explorer. Right, so we're not really going to be using that too much. Now, there are some extra toolbars down the bottom here. You'll see this is how you select COM port. So if we'd have selected the wrong COM port, that's no big deal. You can change it from here. This is the ESP that device that you're using. Again, you can change the processor from there. This is the current project we're in. This is a very important one. This is the configuration manager. This is build, or sorry, clean. This is build. This is set the how we're going to program the device. Tell it to program the device. This is so we can monitor the device, see what it's doing. And this is a nice one. It's build, flash, program, monitor, do the whole lot, one step after the other. And this is to navigate around the ESP IDF terminal. We'll be seeing all that later. So the first thing we must do is always, we need to configure the processor. Because remember, all we've done is selected it as an ESP32S3. We haven't told it anything else. So we're going to do select that, and this is going to take a while to build. It's going to take a few seconds to a few minutes, depending on the speed of your machine. So I'm just going to pause there. So when it finishes building, it should auto open up this window here. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. You can always, it'll be over here. So it's going to open up this, and this may seem, what on earth is this? I'm going to configure IntelliSense. No, just leave that off. We're just going to ignore these pop-ups that Microsoft is going to be giving us about do you want to use IntelliSense and that. So this allows us to configure every single parameter for the device, and it's very, very powerful. Now there's drop downs here. You can actually add in your own drop downs. So say for example you want to be at build time be able to configure a pin for, maybe there's different options that you want to do with it. You can actually put it in here, and we'll look at that later. It's called a K-config. So, but there's several things we need to do with this, and we have to. And this is specifically for the T display. Okay, so the first one is up here under serial flasher config. Now these are all just one after the other. So you can go to the top and scroll. Oh, sorry, you can go to the top and you can scroll them down this way, and you can see on the left here the headers changing. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to serial flash config, and we'll see here there is the flash mode. And the first one we want to change, it defaults to DIO. We need to change it to QIO. Remember, these are the settings that we saw in the Arduino one for these boards as well. So 80 megahertz, that's fine. This is the size of the flash. No, we've way more than 2 megs. We actually have 16 megs on these device here. And we can change the speed here. We'll just leave that for the moment. Now, that's the programming side of it. The other thing we need to do is we need to change the processor speed. When we go and look at the older SparkFuns, there's a couple of things we'll see on, or the older ESPs. There's a couple of other different, these menus will be slightly different, because this is ESP32S3 specific. You can see here, which frequency is at 160 megs. Now we're going to change that to 240 megs. And if memory serves correct, that's all we need to change. We can hit that save there, and you will have noticed there will be files will have changed here. But you can see down here, there's LVGL. That's because I have LVGL. This may not appear on your one installed, but there's loads of other different configuration parameters here, which we'll be looking at. Okay, so we have that saved. We can close this down. If we need to get back to it, we only just have to press the cog. The first time it takes a long time to build it. The second time, third time, no, it doesn't. Now what it has actually done, it has created this SDK config file. And if you look into this and you go through it, the values we've just changed. So no point in editing this. If you see something wrong or something you want to change frequency, you come in here and edit. Don't do it, because when you build the project, this gets overwritten. And here's the previous ones, the parameters that we had. I'm clicking on the wrong place. Clicking on my OBS. Okay, so there was and here are our new ones. We can close that down. We want to open it up. You can see it. Now, in here in main, when we created the project, it created a folder called main for us. So this looks certainly different to Arduino, and it's a more natural, it's a more normal C. It's a C application here we're in. So at the top we have standard stdio, standard IO library for C. And what we're going to do is we're going to install an include file, and that is so that we can write out to the screen. So we're going to go include, and this is a good file or a library to install in all your projects that you're doing on this esplog.h. So we want to use that, and we want to, here's our application main. So this is where it's going to jump to. We're not worried about looping. We just want to test that this has just compiled and everything, or that we've installed everything correctly. So we're going to type a command ESP, and it's log I, and this is from the ESP log library that we've just installed. And there are various different, you see it's log I or log info. There is also log db for debug, CLOGD, and there's different ones. So we're going to use log info, and this is very handy because if you can put in certain different log commands, and they'll come up as different colors in the terminal. You'll be able to see them. You can also put a tag in it, so you can nicely group them if you're in different. So you want to log to the main log something from the main method that you're in, or from a different one. You can find them. So we'll just say main here. And what do we want to log? We want to log good old hello world. That's all we're doing, and we put our semicolons at the end of it. We hit save, and then we want to build that. So just like with the Arduino, you can verify and build or whatever. Or you can just go for it. So this is the build project one here. So we're going to hit build project, and that's going to build it away. Now normally, as you know, I'd normally pause when I get to this stage, but I'm actually just going to leave this run for a second here. So it's going to build through these, and then it's going to start counting up, and it's going to go to 10408 tasks it has, and it's building these away. And this could obviously fail at any stage of it. Now, you might have noticed down here, well, you can't actually because I have the camera in the way there, but I use an extension called Prettier, and Prettier is when you save stuff, it corrects the indentation for you, and it makes it just a bit nicer when you're saving stuff. Okay, I'm going to pause there until it finishes the compilation. So when that finishes, we pop back to this menu here if there's no errors, and as you can see there, it's saying RAM size and everything else and how much is used. So what we're going to do now is we're going to connect to the device. Well, I have connected the device, but let's have a look at these menus down here down the bottom. So we've looked at that one. That was our configuration. This one was clean. If you've done major changes, this is the build flash method. So there's JTAG, UART, or GFU. We're going to be using UART. So just select that and moving to the next one, it's flash device. So it's going to start flashing the device, and you can see it's writing and it's written already. So it's very, very fast. So and it says hard resetting via RTS pin. Next thing we want to do is we want to monitor the device. So we click on the device here, and whoa, we get a load of green flashing stuff. And what on earth is going on? And it looks like actually stuff has gone pear-shaped. But all it's doing is it's saying, hey, this is info, it's booted, stage bootloader, and it's telling us various different types of information about the processor. It's telling our CPU frequency. It says, hey, the project name is Hello World. It's version 1, so we're version controlling. And it's various information, but then it comes down to here, and it doesn't look like our code is executed. But if you look here, it says this last one is main, and it says hello world, and that's actually main. So and then it's colons hello world. If we change this to main method and save that, and let's use this one, build flash and monitor. So we hit this. So this is going to do everything. It's going to build it, it's going to build our changes, it's going to flash it, and it's going to go back to the monitor. So you can see it's successful with that. And you'll notice the second build is much quicker because it's using the cache and it's using a lot of stuff. Obviously, if we hit clean down here, then it's going to take an awful lot longer. And it's relaunched the application. And we can see now, it says main method. since we've changed it to main method up here, and our previous one is gone. And the message here is hello world because we didn't change it. Okay, so that's just a variation or a validation check to make sure that our ESP IDF library is working and is compiling and is executing on the chip. Obviously, we've no graphics on this one because we haven't changed it. So I'm going to pause here. The next thing we're going to do in this tutorial is configure the MQTT broker on a machine. Okay, see you in a second.